You know, there were a lot of Republicans arguing what you were arguing on the campaign trail, and particularly in Senate races, but in many House races, they got rejected at the ballot box. Does the fact that voters rejected many members that share your point of view and at all impact on the fact that maybe you just need to go out there and campaign more, that you can't sort of hold a chamber hostage because you're not getting your way?
I think Democrats have gotten their way with great success. And I don't think your read of the election is right, Chuck. I think what people were looking for is, Republican voters in particular, they wanted to be convinced that Republicans had conviction about what was being sold to them. They were uncertain about that. Now, I also don't disagree that at the margin, people want to have elected officials, they want their candidates, including Republican candidates, to exercise mature and reasoned judgment. But that doesn't mean to lie down and be rolled over by Democrats, whether they're in the majority or the minority. And so my view is we've had an opportunity to take a hard look at each other in the Republican conference over the course of this past week. Folks in the media constantly said, oh, it's dysfunction and chaos. No, it was deciding the most important questions about how this Congress is going to proceed, and we accomplished an enormous amount. As one very sophisticated person in this area observed, this agreement we received is transformational for Congress, and we're going to have a great and productive Congress.
Bottom line, do you trust Kevin McCarthy, or do you simply trust what you've seen on paper?
I think Kevin McCarthy is an extraordinarily talented leader. He will, with all of this having been laid down, I'm confident that we're going to, under his leadership, accomplish a great deal for the American people.
Let's go straight to senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. Ellie, we're not just watching this case evolve and develop. You've tried numerous murder cases, been inside the legal and technical parts of this process. Tell me what you think after watching Gary's report there about how strong the evidence is. The evidence, I guess, unbeknownst to all of us who were following this case for weeks there, we didn't realize they had some evidence to work off of, these investigators.
Yeah, Jim, I think the evidence is exceptionally strong. And like you, I was eager to see this complaint because all that you have to do as a prosecutor in a complaint like this is establish probable cause. That's a fairly low standard. And sometimes in these complaints, that's really all you'll see. But here, the prosecutors went way above that in terms of the evidence. The DNA evidence is really the most important piece. As Gary said, there was a sample of DNA recovered from a knife sheath at the scene that has been matched to this suspect by a 99.9998 probability scientifically. That is very powerful evidence. On top of that, the police really did an exceptional job analyzing his cell phone records, his automobile records, to place him definitively at the scene of the crime. And on top of that, we know that this individual showed some signs that he was trying to cover up his tracks afterwards. So when you take it all together, Jim, it's really a powerful and I think compelling showing.
But Ellie, one thing that investigators have not revealed to the public or put their finger on is motive. How important is that to the case at this point?
So there's a really important distinction here that people sometimes, I think, get crossed up. As a prosecutor, you do have to prove intent, meaning that the person acted on purpose, that he intended to kill. You do not have to prove legally motive, which is the why did the person kill. Now, you want to be able to prove motive. It helps explain the case to the jury, but you don't have to. And it's also, I think, worth noting, the complaint does suggest a potential motive here. They talk about the fact, and Gary alluded to this, that 12 different times this individual went by that house. And as Gary said, it's not something you would pass by. So there could be a suggestion here that there was some sort of stalking or obsessive type of motive.
And it does seem as though Bryan Kohberger was at the scene of the killings. What is stopping his defense team from just saying, okay, he was there, but he didn't kill anybody? I mean, I suppose they could try that sort of defense. Who has the burden of proof?
So the prosecutor always bears the burden of proof of proving its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest standard in our system. I do expect that that may well be a defense. Sure, they can prove he's there, but can they prove he did the killing? And I think the prosecutors are going to come back with, first of all, he doesn't know any of these people. As far as we know, he has no reason to be there. I don't know that there's any evidence that anyone else was there. And here's where I think the evidence that this individual tried to cover up his tracks after the fact becomes so important. Our John Miller, our colleague, has reported that the police watched him. He went to his parents' house in Pennsylvania. They watched him cleaning his car inside and out. They watched him wearing surgical gloves. They watched him take his garbage out at 4 a.m. and then put it not in his own parents' garbage cans, but in a neighbor's garbage cans. I think that is really important. I think that's really powerful with the jury.
And Koberger is charged with 4 counts of murder in the first degree. Is that aiming too high, do you think, for the prosecutors?
No, I think that's exactly appropriate here. What makes this a first-degree murder under Idaho law is that it was premeditated, that it was planned. It wasn't something that happened on the spur of the moment, in a fight, spontaneously, unexpectedly. So I do think it's appropriate that these prosecutors have brought first-degree charges here.
All right, Ellie Honig, thanks so much. Great to see you. Appreciate it.
All right, Jim. Thanks.
Let me ask you about your state for a moment. On Friday, you reopened an investigation into the 16 Republican electors who falsely claimed that Donald Trump won Michigan in the 2020 election, citing new evidence released by the January 6 committee. Michigan GOP co-chair Michon Maddock has already basically outlined their plot to submit these alternate electors. Your reaction to that, and talk to us about how you came to the decision to reopen this investigation. What was specifically the new evidence that compelled you to do so?
Well, look, there has been a mountain of evidence in this case, honestly, since the very beginning. We referred it, along with many other state AGs in swing states, to the federal authorities, and the Department of Justice, I assume, is continuing to investigate. But we're really at a point where it's hard to make sense of why, with this, evidence that we see each and every day and that has been presented by the January 6 committee, why we wouldn't charge under state law when we have the evidence to do so, and the law supports those charges. And obviously, the federal authorities, I'm certain, will continue to move forward. But, the way I see it is, here in the state of Michigan, it's a 14-year felony to pass a bad check. Every day in my department, we issue charges of, welfare fraud and unemployment insurance fraud for things that are so relatively minor compared to the offense of attempting to use a document to overturn a presidential election where over 5.5 million people voted in our state. And it's really hard for me to explain to my constituents, and it's hard for me to reconcile personally why it is that if you have enough money and influence and power, that you can get away with just about any crime. I don't think that that's a good policy, and I don't think it's what the people who elected me to office want to see. And that's why I think it's time to move forward on this matter and to, resume our investigation.
Just on this point about the criticism, I think it's important that you pointed out the humanitarian efforts and the refugee numbers and then the money for the cities, because the criticism about the administration is that they don't have a plan and they aren't doing anything. I think it's important for the president to have done this because we see pieces of the plan. But this criticism from members of Congress, first of all, it's nothing new because we worked at the White House at the same time. OK, we both know how difficult it is to get everyone in Congress behind an immigration plan. But the 4 Democratic senators who came out against the president's plan, talking about it, saying it expands Title 42. There was also some reporting out there that noted that in the meeting where they were detailed this plan, they likened it to Trump-era policies. What are your thoughts on some of that criticism? Obviously, the president's, the president is not, this president is dramatically different from Trump, but the policies are what people are responding to.
Yeah, and I just want to, as you said, Simone, this president really has taken a comprehensive approach, really more so than any other president, in that he's really trying to address the reasons why people leave their countries. He's trying to work with countries in the region, and he's going to Mexico next week with the 3 leaders. But these 2 policies, Title 42 and this asylum announcement, which basically prevents people from asking for protection at our border if they've gone through a country that has asylum and they don't request it there, or if they don't take advantage of the parole program that I mentioned. These are Trump legacy programs. These are things that Democrats campaigned against. These are things that Democrats spoke out against during the Trump administration. Now, I will say the president is in a very difficult spot. People are on the move all over the world, especially in the Western Hemisphere. And this is something that every president since Ronald Reagan has had to contend with. And the strategy that he's put in place, which is a really good one. The challenge is that I think it will bear out in the long run, but it doesn't produce immediate results, and that just doesn't work in politics.
It doesn't work in politics. Before I let you go, Tyler, we could have a whole conversation about what you just said, because I think your comments, that's how people feel. It is concerning for folks, but the president's in a tough position and no easy answers here. There is, though, that Republicans, they've been criticizing the president since he came into office, since before he came into office, for not traveling to the border until now. He's obviously going tomorrow. You think he waited too long?
No, I mean, a lot of people, I went to the border a couple of times. Secretary Mayorkas has gone to the border a number of times. The vice president has gone to the border. So a lot of his advisors have gone to the border. They think about the border every day. They're working really hard with cities, with Border Patrol, to really address the situation and make it orderly. But it is something different for him to go there for himself, to hear from the workforce, to hear from the city, to hear from nonprofits. And I think he'll really learn a lot. There's a lot of good work that's going on in El Paso. I know there's a lot of attention now, but it's one of the safest cities in the country, and it is really an example of welcoming. And I will just close by saying Republicans trot to the border every 2 seconds, but they have not put forth one policy solution. They have not acted on legislation. They have not supported any of the reforms that President Biden has put into place. So they are just all talk, no action, and the president is getting things done.